Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Great Voyage. The Strongest Emperor of the Four Emperors Blackbeard. Chapter 41. God. Celestial Dragons. It turned out to be celestial dragons. How can this be, sister? This is celestial dragons, how can it be here? Dotton, moreover, still in this attitude. Beside the empress, on the left and the right, stood two large female figures. Boya Sandersonia, Boya Marigold. It was the two younger sisters of the empress, and the two strongest members of the 9 snake pirates besides her. At this moment, the two of them both had expressions of extreme terror. How could there still be the backbone of the Shichibukai team, who was so majestic and feared by everyone on the sea? And it was none other than Carlo and Blackbeard who scared them into this, the celestial dragons who kidnapped and boarded the ship, Les Chal Saints. When searching for this big ship, everything was normal at first, and even started to count the goods and food in all the cabins, and all the preparations were packed and taken away, leaving nothing left. But I didn't expect that in the end, in the living room on the rear deck, I found a person wearing a bubble mask and dressed in a space suit. It's the celestial dragons. It's just that the situation of the so-called celestial dragons is somewhat miserable, and they are actually detained in the cabin where live animals live. Moreover, there was an iron chain around his neck, and beside it, there was a whole pot of pig food. That's right, it's pig food. Actually, someone really kidnapped celestial dragons. After a long delay, the empress covered her small mouth before spitting out these short words. As if these words exhausted all her strength. At this time, she was even more unbearable than her two younger sisters, and her whole body was shaking uncontrollably. Where is the look of the pirate queen on weekdays? It's like a little girl who was paralyzed with fright, and almost fell to the ground. Everything that is happening in front of you is like a dream, not only unreal, but also unbelievable. Even if she saw it with her own eyes, the empress felt that it was more fake than a dream. Because of the celestial dragons in front of me, it's really tragic. Horrible misery, inhuman misery, horrific misery. It's like being. No, it's not like, it's exactly the same as raising pigs, keeping celestial dragons here, putting pig food for each other, and keeping them together with pigs. Even worse than pigs, at least there are no iron chains on the necks of pigs. This celestial dragon's situation is really not as good as a live pig. Take me away. I will give you supreme glory, let you become the most best servant, treat the best servant. I go back, Sabayati, go back to Mariajoy, and have my father put to death those two bastards. Saint Lesher's sanity, under such torture, was so grieved that he was no longer sober. This kind of treatment, he has never dared to think about it in his life, raising him as a pig, the world is really crazy. However, thinking is one thing, reality is another. During these 20 days, when Leshar Saint was hungry to the limit, he still inevitably put down his dignity as celestial dragons, and really ate the pig food in that pot several times. No way, if you don't eat, you will starve to death. So, I barely survived until now. Although the consciousness is not clear, it is fortunate that he has not been tortured into a fool. The arrival of the empress and the others was still felt by Saint Leshar, so she tried her best to say the two words intermittently, which in his opinion should be, help. It turned out to be him. The celestial dragons who disappeared from Sabayati land were tied here, and locked up like a pig. Without responding to Saint Leshar's words, the empress kept mumbling to herself, unable to ease the shock and dream in her heart. As early as before, when she saw Leshar Saint being locked here, she thought of the news of the disappearance of Sabayati Archipelago celestial dragons. But no matter what, she couldn't believe that the disappearance of celestial dragons was really man-made. She didn't dare to believe it until she saw this scene. Saint Leshar confessed and asked her for help. Even the so-called slaves in the other party's words, the empress who has always been arrogant, didn't mind, because that's the fear from the bones. Fear of celestial dragons. Take me away. Hurry up, otherwise, as soon as those two bastards come back, it will be too late. Servants, I will give you supreme glory, trust me. As if returning to the light, Saint Leshal suddenly went crazy. Like a mad dog, while yelling hysterically, he rushed towards the empress and them frantically. This scene scared the empress and her two sisters backwards one after another, and almost fell to the ground. Obviously they were only facing an unarmed and locked-waist celestial dragons, but these three sisters, especially the empress, were full of fear. Even the thoughts of resistance did not dare to arise. Let alone touching him. Any movement of Saint Leshar can make her tremble. It's such an exaggeration. Of course, Saint Leshar didn't succeed. When he just jumped into the air, the iron chain around his neck successfully imprisoned him. Under the opposite force, the straight iron chain instantly pulled Leshar Saint back out of thin air, causing him to fall straight to the ground. Help! Help me go! Lowly servants, how dare you, dare not to obey my orders. Being dragged to the ground by an iron chain, Saint Leshar no longer had the strength to toss, so he just lay there, unconscious, and kept repeating these words in his mouth. What kind of person is he who dares to tie celestial dragons here like this? It's hard to imagine a concubine. Are there really people in this world who dare to resist them? As if she had lost her strength, the empress clutched her forehead, her beautiful eyes closed slightly, and she just leaned against the wall outside the door of the living animal room. She can no longer look directly at the scene in front of her, and there is a kind of fear in her bones, which makes her unable to refute the so-called order given by the celestial dragons that she hates. Therefore, the empress can only temporarily leave the cabin, so that her heart that cannot be calmed down, try her best to calm down. At this moment, suddenly, a strong aura came, making the empress suddenly alert. Conquerors. Hockey. Feeling this familiar atmosphere, the empress opened her eyes instantly, feeling incredible. Is there anyone on this island who has the qualifications of a king like her? Yo, it doesn't seem appropriate to say hello to our host when you board the ship, don't you think? Chapter 42. The strong aura that suddenly appeared made the many warriors of the 9 snake pirates guarding the empress boarding the ship with their nerves instantly straightened. The sword was unsheathed, the bow was fully drawn, and everyone immediately transformed into an attacking form, aiming at the connection channel between the front deck and the rear deck. Thief, ha ha ha, man, it seems that they don't take us seriously. Who said it wasn't? Hey, what's the point of this? The voices of Blackbeard and Carlo, sing in chorus, were full of ridicule, and came from the connecting passage of the front and rear decks. Obviously, the two of them are not afraid at all, and they are still strolling in the direction of the 9 snake pirates. After all, this is one's own territory. Mad, how dare outsiders dare to show off in their own home? How can there be such a reason? Don't do it. Get out. At this moment, the female emperor stood up, holding the wall with one hand, and gave orders to all her subordinates. Obviously, not only has she not recovered from the scene she saw before, but it has even gotten worse. She trembled even more, and her face flushed a little. Of course, it's not because of shyness, but because the empress has realized that the owner of this ship, the culprit, who really kidnapped the celestial dragons, is back. Yes, Lord Snake. After receiving the order, more than a dozen female warriors responded in shrill voices. After that, the sword was sheathed and the arrow was returned to the cage. The movements were neat and uniform, and it seemed that the training was quite well trained. Looks like it's reasonable. Pirate Empress, Boa Hancock, get on our ship, what are you doing? Walked out of the passage and came to the rear deck. There was no accident. Carlo, Blackbeard and the others saw the figure of one of Shichibukai, the pirate empress. Looking at the room that had been opened and the state of the empress, Carlo immediately understood what happened. But the queen's unrepentant appearance at this time made Blackbeard feel a little strange. This so-called Shichibukai, how can there be a little bit of embarrassment for them? This time, it was his turn to scratch his head. Didn't they come to arrest them and rescue celestial dragons under the orders of the world government? What exactly is going on? With trembling fingers, she pointed at the live animal cabin. When she asked this sentence, the empress trembled more obviously, although she had already made her performance look as natural as possible. But in vain, not to mention Carlo and Blackbeard, even Lafitte and the others, have already noticed something is wrong. Thief, ha ha ha, my brother was upset when he saw this Tianlong pig, so he tied him up, it's that simple, is there any problem? After realizing that the empress did not have any hostility or calculation towards them, Blackbeard also put down his heart, became bold, and directly explained the reason. Of course, the words are not explained, and the point is that they simply admitted that they had kidnapped Les Char Saints, and did not mention the blackmailing of him. Hearing Blackbeard's laughter, Carlo twitched his lips and said disdainfully, "That's right, even such a rubbish, dare to yell at Lousy and make Lousy kneel. Isn't this courting death? If it weren't for the consideration that killing him in the street would disrupt some of our plans, do you think he would still be alive to this day? It's been cut by Lousy long ago, and you can still see this stupid pig alive." What? Hearing this, the Empress couldn't help taking a breath of cold air. Her face was full of disbelief, her beautiful eyes stared at the boss, and she didn't say a word for a long time. The reason is it's so simple. The celestial dragons bumped into him, and then he tied the other party, using and imprisoning the indescribably valuable celestial dragons like beasts. Not even a beast. The Empress suddenly turned violent waves in her heart. How familiar this scene is. Once upon a time, shouldn't this kind of thing be done by celestial dragons? They have always treated the people who collided with them as beasts, but now they have turned around. How daring is it to use the method of celestial dragons to treat them, and it is even more extreme than them. In this previous life, the Empress had never even dared to think about such a possibility. As proud as she is, since she came out of Mariajoy, her heart seems to have been tricked. Not to mention seeing celestial dragons, just hearing these 3 words will make her terrified and unable to extricate herself. But now, in front of my eyes, such a scene has indeed happened. That is, this pirate who looks quite young in front of me has done such a terrible thing. But this is celestial dragons. I have never seen a concubine before. Someone dares to do such a thing to celestial dragons. The Empress stared at Carlo a few meters away, her expression somewhat stiff. Obviously, at this time, she was shocked to the point of numbness, and she was a little dazed. Yes. Hearing this, Carlo raised his eyebrows, sneered in the direction of the live animal cabin, and deliberately raised his voice. "Isn't it still like a dead pig, locked up by Lousy? Celestial dragons. What's so great? As long as you have enough strength and confidence, these rubbish are just a bunch of pigs to you, just kill them. In my place, the status of beasts is more noble than them." Carlo's voice reached everyone's ears. This time, not only the Empress and her sisters and subordinates, but even the 4 new crew members behind Carlo and Blackbeard, including Lafitte who had just taken in, were a little confused. Unexpectedly, their deputy captain was so powerful to such a point. Kidnap and extort celestial dragons, even if he dared to kill him. Incredible. In the live animal cabin, Saint Leshar, who heard these words, shook his whole body into a sieve, hugged his hood and hid in the corner, never daring to say a word again. No, it's impossible. No one dares to kill celestial dragons. Chapter 43. As if stunned, the Empress kept shaking her head and repeated the word, impossible, when she heard that Carlo was even bold enough to kill celestial dragons casually. How could anyone dare to kill celestial dragons? You know what that means. Once you attack celestial dragons, it means that you will completely tear your face with the world government. It is of great significance to break up with Marine, who has the strongest power on the sea, various organizations, and the world government of nearly 200 allied countries. That is equivalent to standing on the opposite side of the whole world, and being the enemy of the whole world, and fighting against the whole world on your own. In terms of the comprehensive strength, military strength and influence of the world government, this is not an exaggeration at all. Such a behemoth, even if the sea emperors of the New World unite together, they may not be their opponents. After all, just one marine is enough to check and balance the entire pirate world. So the Empress couldn't believe, no matter what, this daring man in front of him would really dare to do such crazy actions to celestial dragons. Even though she had seen Carlo take it away with her own eyes, and even imprisoned here like a dead pig, she did not think that the other party would dare to kill celestial dragons. After all, just kidnapping, even if the possibility is small, there is not necessarily no room for maneuver. No matter how bad it is, taking his life can impose considerable constraints on the world government. But once you kill it, it's completely different. That would be more extremely vicious than the hero of the Murlocs, Fisher Tiger, who did something crazy like releasing the slaves of Mariajoy back then. At this time, the Empress has this kind of mentality. She dare not and can't believe that the madman in front of her will really kill celestial dragons. Ah! Hearing this, Carlo sneered disdainfully, shook his head lightly, and then in front of everyone, he stretched out his hand from Blackbeard's waist and pulled out a big sharp knife, rain burial. Everyone watching this scene was a little stunned. Rao was Blackbeard, and they were all stunned. The knife I got back has not been used much. Why did you use it for X? Blackbeard said he couldn't understand why he, the co-captain, kept pretending to bury his reign. Can't you do it yourself? Co-authored lousy is a scabbard of yours. Do you think it is suitable? Suddenly, Blackbeard felt that the rain burial was not fragrant. You really are a woman with big breasts and no brains, what's so unbelievable? All said, herein lousy, celestial dragons are not as scary as you think. And, you don't know me either. If I told you, would I really dare? Carlo spoke lightly and calmly, and while speaking, he was still flicking the blade with his fingertips, making it make a clanging sound. It seems that the life and death of celestial dragons are completely ignored. In the live animal cabin, when I heard the bursts of sword sounds coming from outside, it was like a talisman issued by the King of Hell, and Saint Leshiel was extremely frightened, and his body trembled even more. At the same time, he kept cursing the Empress in his heart. Can you stop asking? In just a few words, Lousy was almost sent to Wonkwon. No wonder they all say that women are a disaster. How true is it? Leshar Saint said that although pig food is unpalatable, it is better than losing a small life. But obviously, no one is interested in his thoughts at all. It's just a pig and sheep to be slaughtered. What do you think? Does it matter? You really dare to kill celestial dragons? Seeing that Carlo didn't mean to joke at all, the Empress was dazed, and she didn't slow down for a long time. And Carlo did not respond to her words, just raised his eyebrows symbolically. The meaning is very simple, do not want to repeat nonsense. If this is the case, the concubine is willing to swear in the name of the Amazon Lily King and unconditionally agree to one of your requests. Any request. For some reason, the Empress suddenly became solemn and said something like this. Even the two younger sisters behind her, as well as the female warriors of the Amazons, cast their incomprehensible gazes. However, no one dared to intervene at this time and interfere with their queen's decision. In the face of celestial dragons, although the Empress has the fear of ultimate, let alone attacking them, she can do nothing to refute their words. Fear is fear, but this does not mean that the Empress does not hate them. On the contrary, he has the ultimate hatred for this group of garbage, but with his own mentality and strength, he has no hope of revenge against them in this life. And Carlo at the moment dared to make such a statement. Although it was unbelievable to her, at the same time, the frozen heart of the Empress of 10,000 years also became hot again. Saying no to expect is a lie. Because of this, she was so solemn and made such a promise to Carlo. Any request. The Empress's sudden show almost flashed Carlo's old waist. These words made the Empress so beautiful to say. How to taste it? Why does it have a charm that is not suitable for children? Of course, Carlo is very clear about the inner trauma of the Empress, and he can understand her sudden statement. We, the Blackbeard pirates, don't really need anything. But since you said so, why don't you join our group? How do I need to consider it? How can you not give up the opportunity to prostitute? People have said it themselves, any unconditional request. Carlo has never been a cheater. If you want to maximize the benefits, of course, you need to ask people directly. It is good. After a slight hesitation, the Empress nodded heavily and said, if you really dare to kill him, the concubine will join you. Sister, no way. Yes, her lady queen, the country still has two. As soon as the Empress made her statement, the two younger sisters behind her, as well as a group of soldiers, were anxious, and immediately tried to persuade her to let her give up this decision. After all, she is now the king of a country, the leader of the 9 snake pirates, and the 7 warlords of the sea. With so many identities, go to someone else's pirate group to be a crew member. Isn't that so ridiculous? Don't want home. However, before everyone could finish speaking, the Empress didn't turn her head, she waved her hand and blocked all their words. Obviously, in their hearts, the prestige of the Empress is quite high. Interesting. This little girl, in order to see celestial dragons fall to the ground, she didn't hesitate to sell herself. Seeing the empress agree, Carlo's mouth evoked an inexplicable smile. However, the value of this idiot is almost drained. In the end, it can be exchanged for a female emperor to join the team. No matter what you think, it will be earned. Well, he died well. Carlo said that he would try not to forget him. The queen's statement was straightforward, and Carlo didn't hesitate. He immediately took the knife and walked towards the live animal cabin under the dazed and trembling eyes of everyone. Chapter 44. What the FK? Big brother, you are serious? Looking at Carlo with his knife, he walked towards the living animals, with a posture that he really wanted to cut celestial dragons. This time, not only the others, but even Blackbeard, are all confused. Didn't we agree that we should keep this idiot to negotiate with the world government? Just kill it. Carlo's sharp turn made Blackbeard, who had planned and implemented everything with him from beginning to end, not react. This is not what they said. Originally, Blackbeard thought that Carlo was just a slapstick, to shock the Shichibukai pirates in front of him, so as to find an opportunity to threaten the other party and prevent him from speaking out what he saw. But I didn't expect that his brother would actually come to the real world. However, it was just because the incident happened suddenly, and Blackbeard had no plans to stop Carlo. With the IQ of his brain full of bad water, he immediately weighed the pros and cons of this matter. Celestial dragons, staying on the ship is always a trouble. It is said that it is to be negotiated with the world government, but it is also a remedy after exposure and there is no way to do it. In the end, if they weren't forced to do so, they wouldn't take the initiative to reveal the fact that Saint Leshar was in their hands. But this idiot, who has been kept on the boat like this, has some risks to some extent. Just like today, the Empress took advantage of their absence and found celestial dragons on board. This kind of thing may not happen in the future. The current situation is good. Blackbeard is not blind. It can be clearly seen that the Empress has a great hatred with celestial dragons, otherwise she would not have said that to Carlo. In this way, it would be better for their group, and there is no need to consider the risk of being leaked by the 9 snake pirates, and they can also get a group of powerful help. And this place is not the same as it was in the Sabayati archipelago. On the boundless sea, destroying corpses and destroying traces couldn't be easier. Even if CP0's dog's nose is smart, it's impossible to find out anything. In this way, not only can you deal with worries, but also directly minimize the risks that will be exposed in the future. It can also make Leshar Saint shine for the last wave before he dies, and help them exchange for a group of strong reinforcements. Think about it, it's a blast. Just like Carlo's idea, Blackbeard just thought about it for a while, and then realized it, the stakes are there. This method of handling is beneficial to their group, and he will naturally not stop Carlo. Don't, please, Lord, spare, no, I'm not going to want to go back to Mariajoy. Leave me on the boat, be a pig, I will stay here willingly, as long as the adults can keep me alive. Watching Carlo step into the live animal cabin with a ferocious look on his face, and in his hand, there is a long dazzling knife, Saint Leshar, and he was immediately scared to pee. It's not a description, it's really pissing. Resisting the exhaustion of his body, Saint Leshar hurriedly turned and knelt at Carlo's feet, pounding his head like a garlic hammer, and kept kowtowing to him, begging the other party to spare his life. Dignity or something, in the face of life and death, he has long been thrown out of the sky by him. As long as he can survive, let alone kowtow and eat pig food for a lifetime, at this time, Leshar Holy City is willing. Because, this time, he really felt a great killing intent from Carlo. An idiot who has not undergone any training and has been pampered for half his life can have such a feeling, which shows how obvious Carlo's killing intent is. It's good to have this kind of awareness. Seeing this, Carlo showed no expression on his face, his eyes were full of indifference, and said lightly, "Unfortunately, you only woke up now, it's too late." In just a few words, his fate was directly judged. Do not. As soon as Carlo's voice fell, Saint Leshar's voice begging for mercy sounded again, and I saw a sudden flash of sword light. Grumpy wheelie. There was no chance to say a word again, only the head of Leshar Saint that was rolling back and forth on the ground, and the body without the head. Carlo's attack was quite straightforward. Without any hesitation, regardless of the other party's plea for mercy, he directly dropped the knife, let his head move, and ended his life. Instant kill. FK. Seeing this scene with their own eyes, everyone outside the live animal cabin widened their eyes and was stunned. It's too brutal. It's really killing. Burgess almost spit out his saliva, opened his mouth wide to see the bloody scene in front of him, and suddenly fell into extreme excitement. Their co-captain is too arrogant. From this point of view, the 2 beatings before him were indeed considered light, and Burgess said that Lousy was convinced, completely subdued. Originally, when the trials were going on, the arrogant Burgess thought about whether he could be a deputy captain on this boat after winning the spot. Niu X's pirate group. Doesn't he have both left and right hands? With such a fierce existence, he is not worthy of being a second deputy. But it wasn't until he saw this scene that Burgess completely woke up. He really didn't deserve it. The man in front of him is too good, he is absolutely fierce, and he will still be his little brother in the future. Not only Burgess, but also the newcomers such as Lafitte, Poison Q, Van Oka, etc., were sweating constantly on their foreheads. I can't believe it, and I'm so excited. For such a group of freaks, who are different from ordinary people, only this kind of thing can stimulate their indifferent hearts that have almost no humanity. Ha 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 ha, it's cool, bro, it's cool. Looking at the entire sea, the entire history, only we, the Blackbeard pirates, have done the feat of slaughtering celestial dragons. It's unprecedented in history. If there is a chance in the future, Lousy must engrave this incident into the text of history, so that the pirates in the future will all come to pay their respects. Thieves, ha 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 ha. Not to mention those little brothers. It was Blackbeard, watching this epic-making feat, he couldn't calm down and fell into a frenzy. Look at what you're doing, Teach. If you want to be engraved into the historical text, you should wait to kill a few more idiots like this. Let's talk about it. Just one, and it's so shabby, Lousy can't afford to lose that person. Hearing this, Carlo curled his lips. He didn't feel much about killing celestial dragons himself. Then, he turned his attention to the stunned empress, and said as a matter of course, "See, I killed, what can I do? You hold these idiots too high. What descendants of gods, these rubbish are not gods. You can kill as long as you want." Chapter 45. Really? Killed? The empress murmured these 4 words softly, and stood there dumbfounded, looking at the celestial dragons whose heads had already fallen. Her heart was tumbling over and over again, and her mind was blank. Saying it is one thing, but actually doing it is another. Although Carlo's previous life to celestial dragons, his performance was quite indifferent. But after seeing him cut off Saint Lesher's head with his own hands, the empress was unavoidable and petrified. The queen of Nine Snake Island, who specialized in petrifying others, was actually petrified by others one day, leaving a big spectrum. Why do you want me to bring his head over to you to confirm it? Seeing the sullen little girl attitude of the empress, Carlo couldn't help laughing and joked about her. No, no, let the concubine body, slowly. Really killed, he really killed. Is this not a dream? Hearing Carlo's question, the empress recovered from her gaffe. She placed her hands on the towering chest that rose and fell rapidly, and even spoke hesitantly. You can see how restless his heart is. Hearing this, Carlo raised his eyebrows, noncommittal. Then he turned around and said to Lafitte not far away, "Since you have the ability to fly, then you can find a place and deal with him first. Remember, to be clean, we don't want to attract the attention of the world government until Teach and I's plan is implemented." Understood, Vice Captain. Lafitte took the order, then stepped into the live animal cabin, lifted the head and body of Saint Lesher, spread out his white wings, and flew out towards the far sky in the direction of the sea. For Lafitte's ability to do things, Carlo is still very relieved. He didn't need to explain too much, he knew how to deal with it himself. Although the combat ability is average, but in handling things and details, Lafitte is quite excellent, thoughtful and leak-proof. Marigold, Sandersonia, you two, take them back. After a long delay, the Empress finally accepted the reality that the celestial dragons were indeed killed. Immediately, she ordered her 2 younger sisters to return to Daughter Island with the members of the 9 Snake Pirates. Sister, It can't be like this. You are the king, you can't be so willful, the country still needs you to govern. Seeing that the Empress was serious and really didn't plan to go back to Amazon Lily with them, Sandersonia was in a hurry and hurriedly advised. On the other side, Marigold panicked, and persuaded him, yes, elder sister, let's go back first. Even if you go back first and explain to the people. If it weren't for Granny New, we wouldn't be able to explain it. Her old man would definitely scold us to death. New mother-in-law, Gloriosa, is the king before the Amazon Lily third generation. She is still alive now. She was the one who rescued the three sisters who were drifting away and made the Empress the king of this generation. Are you going to disobey this king's orders? Or, I want this king to break his promise and be a villain who doesn't believe his words. At this time, the Empress, Haki exposed, changed the appearance of the little girl who was shocked and frightened before. The appearance of giving orders to the two younger sisters and the crew really has the majesty of being a monarch. As for the old woman, Granny New, I don't need to explain much, just tell her that this is the king's decision. And, if there is a chance in the future, this king will naturally go back. During this time, Daughter Island will be left to the two of you to take care of. That old woman has a lot of experience in ruling the country, and this king also learned from her. With her here, you two don't have to worry. Involuntarily, the Empress directly made her own decision and handed over the kingship of Amazon Lily to her two younger sisters. With an unmoved appearance, there is absolutely no way to persuade. Looking at such an Empress, Marigold and Sandersonia looked at each other and both smiled bitterly. They know that they cannot change their sister's decision by themselves. The most important thing is that the young pirate who killed celestial dragons just now really gave them a great shock. If the other party dares to do this, he thinks that he has good strength and considerable confidence, right? There shouldn't be any danger for her sister to follow her. What's more, the strength of the Empress herself is also very powerful. Just like what she said in the original Pirates, they won the title of the so-called Seven Warlords of the Sea by virtue of their great strength. At least in the first half of the Grand Line, they are real big pirates. Therefore, after thinking about this, the two women did not continue to persuade. However, my elder sister, it's okay if you want us to agree to your stay, but you have to agree to two conditions. First, keep Margaret and the others to protect my sister's safety. Although my elder sister is strong, the sea outside is too dangerous. If Margaret and the others are here, we can take care of them, and we can rest assured. Second, don't dismiss Shichibukai's title easily, our country still needs this title. The words of the two women were obviously softened. Although two conditions were stated, it was a disguised promise to the Empress to go to sea. But, let Daisy and the others stay to protect the safety of the Empress. It's so nonsense. Although in the country of Amazon Lily, Daisy's strength is considered to be a first-class female warrior, and she has already mastered a good armament Haki. But compared to the Empress, with Blackbeard and Carlo, it's too far behind, it's not enough to watch. Obviously, Marigold and Sandersonia did not intend to let Daisy protect her, but wanted to leave a little inside, so that they could always know the direction of the Empress. This point, Carlo saw it at the first time. How did the Queen's two sisters, Xiao Juju, hide it from him? But he didn't expose it. The other party has no bad intentions, there is no need. You two are very promising, and dare to negotiate with this king. Hearing this, the Empress sighed helplessly, but she did not blame the two younger sisters. After all, these two conditions, one is for her good and the other is for the good of the country. The second condition, this king can agree to, but the first. Speaking of this, the Empress turned her head involuntarily and looked at the person standing behind. Her eyes, as if artificial intelligence, directly and automatically excluded Captain Blackbeard, as well as several other younger brothers. All eyes, there is only Carlo. Okay, I don't mind, you can decide. Looking at the Empress's inquiring gaze, Carlo was delighted. Why did this generation of queens who kill decisively become so hesitant? What is there to ask about? Just a few more mouths and a few more jobs. I don't know why. Hearing Carlo's agreement, and looking at the friendly smile on the other side's face, the Empress let out a slight and weak gasp, and her little face suddenly turned red. Mr. Carlo, really charming. Then, she quickly turned her head, did not dare to look at Carlo, looked at her two younger sisters, and said softly, Mr. Carlo agrees, then, let them stay with this king. Not right. Quite wrong. Chapter 46. Seeing the Empress suddenly blushing, Marigold and Sandersonia looked at each other, a little suspicious. What's going on? Why did you suddenly blush? Obviously, the state of the Empress at this time made the two women quite puzzled. However, there is no way, for the two steel-straight women who have never experienced and felt this special affection, it is impossible to understand the feelings of the Empress at this time. Even the Empress herself was a little strange, not knowing what was wrong with her. Anyway, it is inexplicable. I feel that the man in front of me is so charming. It's never been before. Forget it, it doesn't matter. Let's go back and ask Granny New, she should know something. It's miserable, I will definitely be scolded when I go back this time. At the thought of being scolded, Marigold and Sandersonia slumped and didn't want to think about these messy questions. Not long after, the two women bid farewell to the Empress and led most of the members of the 9 snake pirates back to their ship. Then, dragged by the two giant pythons, the big ship moved in the direction of the distant calm belt. In this regard, the Empress completely left the 9 snake pirates and joined the team of Carlo and Blackbeard. Of course, she was not the only one who stayed together, but also the first-class powerhouses of Daisy and Afi Randora's two daughter islands. With the Empress's repeated insistence, she only left these 2 powerful warriors and 5 elite warriors, a total of only a 7-person team. Of course, there is also the pink and white, cushioned snake, that always follows her, Samaro. The reason is also very simple. First, the daughter island still needs strong protectors, and Kikyo and the others must go back. The second point is even simpler. In a word, I don't want to cause trouble to Mr. Carlo. As for which is true, which is false, which is light and which is more important, it is unknown. Anyway, in the end, it was really hard to beat her. The 2 younger sisters of the Empress had no choice but to compromise and led people away. Deputy Captain, it's all taken care of. At this moment, in the sky not far away, there was a burst of evil laughter. The next moment, Lafitte's figure appeared in the eyes of everyone. I saw him folded his wings and jumped back to the boat, with a lot of bloodline on his hands, and returned to Carlo and Blackbeard. 2 captains, please rest assured that no one in the world can find his body again, let alone reveal a trace. If I expected it right, now, his corpse has begun to digest in the belly of that sea king's. Apparently, Lafayette had performed a second treatment on the body of Saint Les Charles. The way to deal with it is simple and cruel. Since you don't want to be noticed, let him directly become the nourishment of sea kings. When it appears, it's just a pile of feces. No matter how many means CP0 has, can he still find a bunch of baba from the sea? Needless to say, Saint Leshar is so miserable, being killed, even the corpse has to be turned into a lump, which is 10,000 times worse than being whipped. Good job. Hearing this, both Carlo and Blackbeard expressed their satisfaction, and they really liked this kind of subordinates that gave people peace of mind. Who said that combat power is the only hard standard for their Blackbeard pirates to board the ship? Intelligence quotient is as important as the means of doing things. Isn't this the dozens of streets in Burgess? Ha 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 ha. I didn't expect that the size of our pirate group would expand so fast, and even Shichibukai is our companion. If the world government were to know about it, the bastards would be blacked out. As soon as he mentioned Burgess, this guy spoke up, obviously the master of remembering what to eat and not to fight. The Queen joined them as 7 warlords of the sea, making Burgess extremely excited. Immediately, he greeted the Empress and her subordinates and said, Ha 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 ha, welcome aboard, Pirate Empress, I have long admired her name. But, seeing this guy walk forward with a shy face, the Empress not only did not respond with the same good face she had towards Carlo before, but she frowned, showing a bit of disgust on her face. The Empress flicked the white cloak behind her, stretched out her right hand, and pointed her index finger to Burgess, her head almost turned upside down, so she scolded, unreasonable people, step down for this king. This king doesn't want to take action on his subordinates in front of Mr. Carlo, so step back quickly. Appeared. The Queen's unique contempt for kings. It's just that the feeling is quite strange. Excessive contempt turns into looking up. PFF'd. Single quote. Seeing this scene, one of the people present, including Carlo and Blackbeard, all burst out laughing. Lafitte was even more ruthless and laughed loudly at Burgess. Putting a cold butt on his hot face, Burgess is indeed an embarrassing physique. However, it was also his fault for his lack of discernment. Everyone present could see it. The Empress was obviously only obedient and respectful to Carlo. Even their captain, Blackbeard, didn't step forward to join in the fun. He's fine, not too embarrassed to panic. It's all right now, shame on it. Anyone with a discerning eye can see it, especially Blackbeard. Obviously, it was because Carlo's previous actions of killing celestial dragons with his own hands convinced the Empress, so people would definitely only follow his words. Everyone knows how the Empress, who is so arrogant and incomparably arrogant, can have a good face towards others. I didn't take any action against Burgess at the moment, and gave him a petrochemical package, all because of Carlo's face. However, Blackbeard didn't mind at all. Originally, it was all because of his co-captain's smart mind and decisive actions that he tied the Empress, the real 7 warlords of the sea, to their warship, and also resolved the crisis of news leaks. Turn enemies into friends, a group of incense. Anyway, Carlo is his person. Listening to Carlo's words is the same as listening to his words, no difference. It's just that Blackbeard can only think about it in his heart. If he wants to say it, he has to be completely suspected of his hobbies by Carlo. Okay, it's even more lively now. Brothers, get ready. Starting our pirate group, the first grand banquet, thief ha 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 ha. Chapter 47. The time gradually came to evening. At this time, there was no one living person on the entire Soraka Island. They all died at the recruitment meeting arranged by Carlo and Blackbeard. Even if they were still angry, they were forced to send them off after they made up for it. And most of the 9 snake pirates also left this place and returned to Amazon Lily. Therefore, at this time near Soraka Island, there is only a pirate ship from the Blackbeard pirates. After passing through Burgess and other 4 people, and the Queen's team of 7, they almost removed all the pirate ships parked around them. Although Carlo has specially allowed the members of the 9 snake pirates who left to take most of the supplies, there are still a lot of them left. The owners of these boats all died on the island, and the rest are all unknown things. What a pity it was wasted. Wouldn't it be nice to share a wave with everyone? Of course, after the evacuation, they also destroyed and sank most of the ships docked at the port. It's a full set of drama. Since it's a big battle, and the pirate ships are all intact, it's a bit too fake. After doing all this, everyone took a lot of food and wine from the boat, then returned to Soraka Island, found a place far away from the square, and prepared to hold a banquet. After all, the smell of blood in the square is too heavy, which is somewhat disappointing. At this time, their supplies were so rich that they filled almost all the storage rooms on the ship, and there were some leftovers. He is not afraid of the shortage of supplies at all. Holding his banquet for 10 days and a half months in a row is enough. In this way, the 7 girls took a lot of supplies, found 2 people at random, took materials directly on the spot, made fires and cooked food, and prepared for the banquet. This kind of work is still relatively familiar to the girls. If there were only Blackbeard and Carlo and the others in the kitchen, they would probably only be able to eat some convenient food, such as ham and pork legs. All in all, it is quite convenient to have these girls on board. After about 2 hours, at 8 o'clock in the evening, finally, under the busyness of the 7 people, everything was ready. Thief ha ha ha, let's start, brothers, drink up. On a certain street in Soraka Island, the lights were all on, and a group of 14 people set up 2 huge long tables on the street and started a grand banquet. At this time, the Empress did not sit with the female warriors of the 9 Snake Island like Daisy and Ephilandora. He took the initiative to trot to Carlo's side and stood behind him. Beside Carlo, Burgess was holding a big meaty leg and spinning frantically. At this moment, he suddenly felt a biting coldness hit his body. Cough, 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 cough. As soon as he turned around, he saw the icy cold eyes of the Empress that almost killed him in seconds, which made him feel a chill, and in a panic, he choked on his fleshy legs and almost didn't send him away on the spot. My Lady Empress, sit here, I'll go. Not daring to even feel any resistance, Burgess was quite sensible this time, and hurriedly ran across the table to give up his seat to the empress. What a joke. The events of the day are still vivid in his mind, and he doesn't want to become a statue. Thief, ha ha ha. Bro, Lousy is so happy. Our pirate group is developing so fast, we must drink one. On the other side of Carlo, Blackbeard held the wine bottle, the two of them touched each other, and then they poured it. Seeing this, the empress on the side sneakily took out her own wine glass, looked at Carlo who was pouring wine with her head up, and quietly stretched out her own wine glass, and gently touched it at the bottom of the other's wine bottle. Yeah, seeing that her small actions were successful, the empress and the little woman showed no doubt. She gave a soft yawn, and then took back the wine glass, her pretty face flushed, and she took a few sips to herself. The empress's small movements were naturally hidden from Carlo. Looking at her appearance, the corners of Carlo's mouth rose slightly, but he didn't say anything and let her go. Cough, cough, the two bosses, do we have any plans for the future? Watching Blackbeard and Carlo put down the wine bottles in their hands, Poison Q coughed a few times and asked the two of them. I think the plan of the two captains should be implemented soon, right? With my current strength, in the first half of the Grand Line, apart from Marine and World Government, no one should be able to stop us. This is a great opportunity to make the Blackbeard pirates famous. Beside Poison Q, although Van Oka was drinking, he refused to let go of his Chinlu, and said in agreement. Although Lafayette and Burgess did not speak out, it was obvious from the expressions on their faces. These people are not the ones who can endure loneliness. Now they have acquired extremely powerful abilities. Although they have not really started to develop them, their hearts are restless. Coupled with the addition of Empress Shichibukai, they are now even more unafraid of other Shichibukai threats. A few people's words are correct. In addition to the emperors of New World, from the perspective of comprehensive strength, there are only Marine and World Government in the ocean, which can pose a relatively big threat to them. Others, there are very few people who can trouble them. Therefore, these few newcomers who have just joined, all want to know what the plan that Carlo and Blackbeard have been talking about is. Isn't it in a hurry? Lousy has endured it for so long, and you can't bear it anymore as soon as you get on the boat. Thief, ha ha ha, it's quite suitable for Lousy's appetite. Blackbeard laughed a few times, then looked at Carlo beside him with a hint of questioning in his eyes. It's okay, let's talk, they're all in the same group, there's nothing to hide. Blackbeard's meaning, how could Carlo not be clear? He was afraid that these people had joined for a short time and would be unreliable. If their news was leaked, it would be a big trouble. However, Carlo, who has God's vision, is obviously not worried about this. These four, but they will accompany Blackbeard all the way to the top of the four Emperor's veteran crew members. The most important thing is, are you so worried about being useful now? These guys know all about celestial dragons, what's more? It is good. Hearing this, Blackbeard nodded, stood up immediately, waved his sleeve robe, and announced, Lousy and the deputy captain's plan is to capture the second captain of the Whitebeard pirates, Fire Fist Ace. Chapter 48. At this time, Blackbeard was quite arrogant. While explaining their planning process to the crowd, he also made various gestures that he thought he was handsome. This scene, watching Carlo's eyes is hot. Brother, we don't have that temperament, forget it. Carlo said, no, you should accept your fate, you can't force it. It took more than 10 minutes for Blackbeard to tell everyone about Carlo and all the plans he had said. Under Carlo's suggestion, he did not hide it, from capturing Ace to become Shichibukai, to provoking a world-class war, and even replacing Whitebeard's position, he told everyone. Yake is silent, a dead silence. After Blackbeard finished speaking and sat down, in the banquet, except for the barbecue fire that was still crackling, there was no sound at all. Everyone present is stupid. Yes, it's all. The 7-member elite team, including the Empress, and even herself, all had their pupils shrunk, so shocked that she could not speak. As for Burgess and Lafitte, it was even more unbearable. The meat he had just bited was still not finished in his mouth, and the wine bottle in his hand kept falling to the ground. He was so shocked that he didn't dare to breathe, so he just stared at Blackbeard. It turns out, Captain, you are the one who killed Whitebeard's captain. No wonder. When you used your abilities today, I felt so much pressure. It turned out to be such an ability. It's worth it, it's worth it. With this ability, why can't we go to the top of the sea in the future? Lafitte seemed to have torn off his mask, and the expressions on the mechanized dramatic face disappeared. At this time, he was looking at Blackbeard with a frenzy on his face. It turns out that, no wonder the Whitebeard pirates did not inform the real murderer. Fan Oka even put aside Chinlu, who was inseparable, and kept rubbing his hands together, as if he had not recovered from the shock just now. Ha 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 ha. As expected of the captain, not only does he possess that terrifying ability, but more importantly, he can come up with such a terrifying plan. It's just too perfect. Once we succeed and we replace the Whitebeard pirates, wouldn't we directly become a member of the Sea Emperor? Ha ha ha. It's cool to think about it. No, it's too hot. I have to drink some wine to cool down. Having said that, Burgess picked up the wine bottle on the table and performed a spin directly, and the excitement was beyond words. All the people present, except the Empress who had not yet reacted and her 7-member team, all fell into a frenzy. Even Van Oka, let alone other people, were so excited by this plan that it was difficult to calm down. For them, they never even dared to think that they would have the opportunity to participate in such a top-level action in their lifetime. And the target is the once strongest emperor on the sea, and the marine they hate. Thief haha, dark fruit, it is indeed my ability. But Lousy doesn't have such a good brain. This plan was proposed by your co-captain, Carlo Mann. When we first met and formed this pirate group, he proposed this plan to bring Lousy to the top. If you want to thank him, thief ha ha ha, including the devil fruit you have, which he planned and snatched it from celestial dragons. For this kind of thing, Blackbeard didn't dare to go overboard. Immediately, he put his arms around Carlo's shoulders and introduced the newcomers to the heaven-defying aspects of their co-captain. At this scene, the Empress on the side frowned slightly. I don't know why, but there is some unnatural resistance in her heart. Others have such close contact with Carlo. Even if the other party is a man. FK, it's actually the deputy captain. It's awesome. You can actually come up with such a plan. In an instant, Burgess couldn't calm down. His eyes widened, staring at Carlo who was sitting opposite him, with an unbelievable look. Yeah, and when you and the captain just formed a pirate group, you came up with such a plan. It's so incredible. On the other side, Lafayette also took a breath of air in shock, and sighed quickly. A person, who has not joined or formed any team, came up with such a terrifying plan. This can no longer be summed up in 2 words: terrible, and it is not enough to describe it with a heart that is higher than the sky. The most important thing is that their deputy captain not only proposed this kind of plan that others dare not even think about it. Even, now it has begun to get on the right track, and it is time to practice. After killing celestial dragons, it's not over yet, and even set up a chess game against the world's top forces, world government, marine and 4 emperors. Almost everything is in his calculations, just thinking about it makes people want to shiver. The most frightening thing is that he came up with such a terrible plan without any help, team and foundation. If you say it, no one will believe it. Even the Empress beside Carlo was staring at him blankly. How bold is this man in front of him? Outrageous courage. No wonder he dared to attack celestial dragons so recklessly during the day. The plan of the emotional family was originally the group of people standing on the top of the sea. Okay, take it all. Don't stare at Lousy like that, it's weird, the banquet isn't going to continue. The fiery gazes of the people around made Carlo feel uncomfortable, and immediately complained. How can it be so difficult to keep a low profile? What the vice captain said is what he said. Ha ha ha, let's be lively. With such a perfect plan, do you need to think about anything else? Don't get drunk or sleep tonight. Celebrate the captain's ability and the vice captain's invincible plan. Let's be lively. This time, Burgess's embarrassing physique did not reproduce. Everyone's performance was quite eager. After Carlo's plan was exposed, everyone was boiling. For a time, the atmosphere of the banquet was pushed to its climax. Chapter 49. Captain, I said, how powerful is the deputy captain? Although I just ate the beeman fruit, in the form of a beast, whether it is attack or defense, it should be many times stronger. But the seemingly ordinary punch from the vice captain today has hit me so much that I haven't slowed down yet. He doesn't seem to be able to use armament hockey. It's not scientific. Did I eat a fake beeman fruit? Burgess's eyes kept glancing at Carlo, who was sitting opposite him, but he didn't dare to look directly at them. Instead, he approached Blackbeard and asked him about his strength. Are you so blind? Lousy is sitting here. You run to ask teach. Just ask, but don't let Lousy hear it. Regarding the scene in front of him, Carlo said that it was outrageous, and he had never seen such a compliment. Obviously he was sitting in front of him, but Burgess didn't know what to think. This roundabout scene looked quite funny, and the few people on the side were amused. It can be seen that Burgess is really scared of being beaten. However, he did not exaggerate. The 2 blows Carlo gave him today seemed like a joke, but only this guy knew how painful it was. To this day, I can still feel the pain in my big face. Hey, I'll beat you with the strength of the vice captain. Ahem, do you need to use hockey? Next to Burgess, Poison Q coughed, glanced at Carlo with a smile, and then slammed him unceremoniously. There's no way. Who makes this guy the most capable of pretending to be X? In one day today, he offended almost the entire crew. Seeing him speak, everyone wanted to say a few words. Hee, who said it wasn't? On the other side, Lafayette also sneered and made a speech. But then, he also looked at Blackbeard and Carlo, who were sitting in the first place, obviously also interested in this topic, very curious. It's okay to be idle. Let's chat. 2 captains. How did you form a pirate group? Why did you target celestial dragons? Ordinary people don't dare to have such crazy ideas. Everyone knew about Blackbeard's terrifying abilities and Carlo's crazy plans. And now, what interests them the most is the unknown strength of Carlo, the deputy captain, and the past experiences of the 2. Right now, the banquet was pushed to the climax by several blockbuster news, and everyone was drinking too much, blushing and thick necks, and they became more courageous. This time, of course, is the best time to satisfy their curiosity. Hearing this, the 7 female warriors of 9 Snake Island on the other side also perked up their ears and moved their bodies to this side unconsciously. For creatures like men, they generally dare not approach them. After all, most of the women on 9 Snake Island have never met in their lives, and in the stories circulating in China, men who have been specially demonized are frightened. Daisy and the others are okay. This time they had the opportunity to go to sea with their queen, and they met some men. They were not so scary at all. They were all normal people, and they have adapted a lot by now. At this time, when they heard Lafitte ask about Carlo's strength and past, they couldn't help it, and they ignited a strong curiosity. Who doesn't want to know? Who is the only man who dares to slaughter celestial dragons at will? Who can come up with such a terrifying plan? And who is the only man who makes their queen so weird? Anyway, the attention of the empress now is obviously not on them. I don't know why. The empress's 2 eyes almost turned into peach hearts, and the eyes are full of this man, so wrong. Although I don't know why Her Majesty is doing this, I can't find their little actions at this time. Of course, I have to take the opportunity to satisfy my 8 trigrams psychology. Ordinary people. Thief, ha ha ha. Look at the 2 of us, who looks like an ordinary person. Hearing Lafayette's doubts, Blackbeard couldn't help laughing. But for these crew members, he has nothing to hide. Anyway, all the details are paid, and such trivial matters are even more unnecessary. To be honest, I don't even know Carlo's true strength. No one has ever made him go all out, but the only thing that is certain is that he is very strong, absolutely outrageous. Even I doubt whether the current Lousy is his opponent. While sighing, Blackbeard kept looking at Carlo next to him, and even he was curious about how strong the best partner who started a business with him in front of him was. So mysterious. You know, this guy is not a capable person yet. Thief, ha ha ha. If you really take down the head of that stinky old man from Whitebeard in the future, Carlo's strength will be even more terrifying. Lousy is quite proud to have such a mate. Thief, ha ha ha. That bastard Shanks will be compared by Lousy sooner or later. Question mark, question mark, question mark. If you brag about me, just brag, I'm used to it anyway. But what do you keep comparing me to the redhead? Excessive. Isn't the captain really you? What does lousy compare to the four emperors as a mate? Listening to Blackbeard's mouth full of running the train, Carlo, who was drinking, almost choked, and was quite speechless. Obviously, even in small talk, Blackbeard can't forget the red-haired shanks that has always been on his mind. What? Deputy captain, he doesn't even have the ability to fruit. How many of us have eaten, but all of them are top-notch devil fruit, don't you even look down on this kind of ability. And, without the ability, just relying on the physical skills that have not been fully used, is it so scary? This is too scary. Burgess was immediately confused. To be honest, not only him, but also Lafitte and the others were a little confused. They took out so many top devil fruits to recruit crew members, but they didn't even have the ability to fruit. And what people want is the ability of the strongest man in the world. Once you really get shock fruit, plus the vice captain's conqueror's hockey, and his unfathomable combat power, almost all the auras are condensed into one person. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but take a deep breath. Ha ha ha, what a fierce man, lousy can't wait, and wants to see the deputy captain make a full shot. An ordinary banquet, just sitting and chatting for a day, before even an hour came, the hearts of several people were shocked several times. The second-hand Burgess turned into a little fanboy in the same place. Excited, he dared to compliment Carlo. He kept laughing and began to praise him infinitely. The admiration for their co-captain, Burgess, grew more and more, and there was no trace of arrogance in him. After joining this team, there is really no place for him to be arrogant. The captain and the deputy captain are more heaven-defying than the other, and the other new members are also freaks. Even if he eats the beeman fruit, he has to be obediently nestled. Go all out. Then at least you have to pull an admiral or the so-called emperor of the sea, right? Otherwise, no one deserves lousy's full power. At this moment, Carlo's faint words reached no one's ears. Chapter 50. There was no emotion, it was so plain, but he said the most terrifying words, which made everyone present warm up again. Two braces, pretending to be X, who wouldn't? They all praised Carlo so highly. If you don't cooperate, it's not justified. Moreover, for him, it is best to say more, or even overflow. Only in this way, he will rely on the system upgrade in the future to show stronger and stronger strength, will it be reasonable and will not cause suspicion. After all, in the eyes of others, a person who doesn't do proper work every day and doesn't practice cultivation at all, suddenly has an outrageous strength, which is somewhat unreasonable. The only way is that lousy is already so strong. Not convinced. Unconvinced to practice alone, no one on this ship can really force him to the fullest. Blackbeard was right, it was him, no way. Carlo hasn't eaten devil fruit yet, so he's not afraid of dark fruit's restraint at all, and he can easily crush it with physical techniques. Thief, ha ha ha, I knew, man, your strength must be very strong, it's so reliable. In the future, lousy will still be afraid of that stinky old man. It's really a surprise if you dare to come to your door after chasing lousy. Giving gifts for thousands of miles directly deprives the stinky old man of his ability, and makes you stronger. Thief, ha ha ha, think about it and you will be motivated. Listening to Carlo's own statement, Blackbeard's heart became more and more confident, and the look of arrogant laughter was almost better than his own strength, and he was excited. Everyone else, especially the group of 4 who just joined today, all felt that this trip to Soraka was right. To join such a strong team and make a lot of money. Really? So strong. Wouldn't it be stronger than Lord Snake G? It's no wonder that Lord Snake G will choose to join their team. It seems that in the future, our country will have a new backer. Even Daisy and the others on the other side covered their mouths one by one, looking at the exaggerated gestures of the group of men in front of them, as well as their shocking conversations, in disbelief. Now, instead, they feel that their queen has seen Carlo's strength and wants to find a new shelter for Daughter Island. After all, they don't know the past of the empress as celestial dragons, and the identity of Shichibukai, everyone knows, can't be trusted. As pirates, they cooperate with the world government and marine, and they are seeking skin from tigers. Everyone knows this. Mr. Carlo's strength, is it so powerful? And he has such a lofty goal. In the future, his concubine, will it hold him back? At this time, the Empress has turned into a pair of stars with eyes full of stars, and the words worship and obsession are almost written on her face. However, in terms of inner drama, no one can compare to her. I was still immersed in my admiration for Carlo, but in an instant, I thought that I might be a drag on the man in front of me. No, Mr. Carlo must have thought that the concubine's strength is not weak when he let his concubine aboard. Well, that's it. Of course, maybe, I also like the beauty of the concubine body. After all, the concubine body is the most beautiful woman in the world. The Empress's emotions were quite evasive. She had only been emo for less than a second, and was instantly blushed by her own fantasy, and hurriedly put down the wine glass and covered her face. The nympho, it's simply to the point of shocking the world. However, what if the concubine can't keep up with Mr. Carlo's progress in the future? Will he be despised by him? At that time, will another vixen suddenly appear, and then? In an instant, the shyness on the Empress' face disappeared, and Beate bit her cuff, with a look of sympathy, and even a few traces of anger. No, the concubine can't fall behind. No one can snatch Mr. Carlo from this king, unforgivable concubine, but I want to hold a wedding with him. Ha. Proposal. Yeah, I hate it, Mr. Carlo, why are you so direct? Quote. Looking at the ever-changing Empress beside him, a strange look suddenly appeared on Carlo's face. With such a big mood swing, is this little girl afraid that others won't see what she's thinking? Well, the attention of beautiful women is better than those of the rough old men from Burgess. Well, why? Being able to arouse such a big response from the number one beauty in the pirate world, Carlo said it was quite useful. Immediately afterwards, Blackbeard on the other side of him did not sell any more. While drinking, he told everyone about a series of experiences he and Carlo have had since they met and formed the pirates. Under the impetus of jeu d'honneur, he once again showed off to his subordinates. That smug look is simply a replica of the Queen. In this way, this grand banquet lasted all night. It was not until the next morning, when the sky started to light up, that the members of the Blackbeard pirates extinguished the bonfire, cleaned up the traces here, and ended the banquet. Teach, where are we going next? On the way to the port, the Empress, like a little follower, kept following Carlo, refusing to take the next step. For such a small gesture of hers, Carlo just smiled without revealing it, and then asked Blackbeard, who was walking aside. It's time for us to go and find that devil fruit. Brother, your strength is so strong, and you put a lot of pressure on me. If you don't hurry up and become stronger, Lousy's identity as captain is somewhat embarrassing, thief, ha ha ha. Blame me. It's not that you have to brag. What are you doing? You broke your defense. Carlo spread his hands, indicating that he has nothing to do with me. However, when he heard Blackbeard's words, Carlo's heart skipped a beat. You know for sure, where is that fruit now? Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.